Right guys, so welcome back to another video. A little bit different this time. So anybody that's seen the last video with Stuart saw on 17 I was complaining about my wrist, and I've done something to my wrist. I don't know what I've done, but I've not been able to really play for the last 3 weeks, so I thought I would take this opportunity. I've had a few requests for a what's in the bag video, so that's the plan for today, so let's get into it. So as you can see, we're actually here in my back garden, so I've not had time to get down to the golf course this week, so this is the best I could do. So if we start with the biggest club in the bag, so this is a fairly new addition to the club this year, TaylorMade QI10, absolutely love it. 9-degree head in this one, but you can actually change the settings on it here with the loft, etc. So I've got this actually knocked back up to I think 9.7 degrees. As the loft on this, just to help me get the ball in the air a little bit more. We've got the Hazardous 6.5 60 gram shaft with low spin, so I put quite a lot of spin on the ball with my driver, so the idea behind this is just to help me take a little bit of spin off it, but the higher launch, the higher loft helps me just launch it up in the air a little bit. High launch, low spin equals longer drive. So that's the driver. Like I said, I've had it in the bag most of this year, and when I'm swinging it well, I absolutely love it, yeah. So, onto the 3-wood. So I don't actually carry this normally. This is the TaylorMade Stealth 2 Plus 3-wood. I got fitted for this last year. I really like this club, but it just doesn't quite fit into my bag, especially now that I've got the 7-wood that you'll have seen me hit in some videos. So we've actually got this knocked back to 16.5 degrees instead of the standard 15, and the movable weights in the back there are all the way in the back. So the idea was, I tend to hit my fairway woods quite low with not a lot of spin, so I needed something that was going to launch the ball in the air for me and add a little bit of spin, so it basically so that it doesn't go too far, and that's what this does. So similar shaft to the driver, the Hazardous, but this one's a 70 gram shaft, so a little bit heavier, but the 6.5 as well. Like I said, I love this club, but it just doesn't quite fit into my bag, and I'll explain that in the next part. Okay, so onto my favourite club in the bag. You'll have heard me go on about this in videos recently, but the QI10, this is a 7-wood, so I needed something that, you know, I had the 3-wood, I used to go driver, 3-wood, 2-iron, 4-iron, but the gapping and distances were just a little bit off. So I asked Stuart at Carnoustie to fit me for something that would fly sort of 240 to 250, but be a little bit more consistent in terms of ball flight, strike, and also something that I could hit into par 5s, you know, if I'm going over water, if I'm going over bunkers, etc. And this is it. So I love this thing. 21 degrees of loft. Again, same shaft as the driver and 3-wood, the Hazardous. This is the 70 gram shaft again, but I never thought I would see the day I would have this, but I tried a 3-iron, I tried a hybrid, but the results just weren't as good, not as consistent, and like I said, this is, to me, this is my favourite club in my bag, so I love it. It was tough getting the ego out the way and saying, really, a 7-wood, but it works, so there's nothing wrong with that. Right, so on to probably the most important club in my bag, the 2-iron. So I've had this for years. This is an old Callaway UT X Forged 2-iron with a KBS Tour extra stiff shaft in it, 18 degrees. But the reason this is the most important club in my bag is if I get to a tee shot where, say there's, you know, water left, out of bounds right, something like that, but it's too long a hole to hit, you know, 4 or 5-iron off the tee, you know, you need a bit of distance, this is the club I hit. So I can carry this at least 240, if not 250, but it goes low, it's a penetrating ball flight, but more importantly, it doesn't spin a lot, so I can hit it really straight. So, you know, windy days here at Carnoustie, this is the club that I hit off a lot of tees to keep the ball underneath the wind. And again, that's why the 3-wood doesn't really fit into my bag. I like having the 2-iron that I can hit low, but I also like having the 7-wood that I can hit high. So at the moment, to be fair, I'm carrying 15 clubs, but in tournament play, obviously you can't do that, so the 3-wood's the one that I drop. But yeah, this is one of my favourite clubs in the bag. Like I said, having a club for me that I know that I can put in play 9 times out of 10 makes such a huge difference in competition. So, onto the irons. So these are new in the bag for this year, the TaylorMade P770s. So it took me a little bit to be convinced of moving away from blades. I've had blades for years and years and years, so I had the P7MBs before this, but they were just honestly a little bit too hard. I don't have as much time to practice as I used to, and they were just a little bit too difficult to hit. So I wanted something like these that were a little bit more forgiving, but would still give you the consistency of a blade. And I mean, when I was getting fitted for these by Stuart last year at Carnoustie, it was shocking because the consistency that these gave me was actually even better than the blades that I had before this, which I couldn't quite figure out, but they're much easier to hit. They go a little bit higher, they spin a little bit more, but they also don't stall in the wind. I don't know how it's possible, but so I've got 4-iron all the way down to the pitching wedge in these. So the shafts are Dynamic Gold X100s. So again, I got fitted for a number of different shafts, but my spin numbers were a little bit lower than we would have liked with these in the Project X 6.5 shafts that I had before. So that's why we went for the Dynamic Golds, just to get a little bit more spin on the irons. So yeah, I've enjoyed using these. I've been struggling with them a little bit at times, but that's been my fault, not the club's. Okay, so on to the wedges. So I actually have quite an unusual setup in my bag. I've always had a 60-degree wedge. I've always played the Titleist Vokey, so I've got an SM9 in the 60 and the other two are in the SM8s. So same shafts, Project X 6.5s and the wedges as well. But what's unusual with my setup is, I don't know if you can see there, but I actually go 50, 56, 60. So it's just a distance thing where my pitching wedge goes a certain distance and I need the 50 to go a certain distance, and I don't really like using a 58 instead of a 60, so the gapping's a little bit off, but I've always been quite good at hitting like a little 3/4 50 and taking some distance off it. So I've got various different types of bounce on these as well. So the 60 degrees got 8 degrees of bounce, but it actually sits fairly flush when you put it down flat on the fairway, but when you open it up it has a lot of bounce. That's the M grind and the Vokeys, but the 56 has got 10 degrees of bounce, but it has a lot more bounce at address. So this is a much easier shot, particularly on say parkland courses where there's a bit of grass underneath the ball. You don't want to dig too much. This is really helpful to try and shallow out that angle of attack and not have the leading edge dig in. So that's the wedges. So on to the last but not least, the putter, and I don't know if you can actually see there, but it still has the sticker on it. So that's basically because I got this 3 days ago. So I've never actually used this ever. I've tried one similar on the putting green, but I've never actually used this putter. This was brand new, just got this the other day. So it's the TaylorMade Spider GTX. So it's got this beautiful red finish on it that hopefully you can see quite nicely there. But it just looks great. There's a lot of guys on tour using them. I got some advice. You know, you'll have seen in a lot of videos I had the TaylorMade, the Odyssey 2 ball. But I've had that for probably 15 years, so I just fancied a little bit of an upgrade. This has got the weights at the back to just help stabilise it a little bit, so off-centre strikes, the ball tends to start on line a little bit easier. But I'm going to have to report back on that because I haven't used it yet. So that's it, guys. Other than that, really, the golf ball, I've always been a TaylorMade TP5X man. I've tried the TP5, but it just spins a little bit too much. I just can't quite get the same ball flight on that. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Just something a little bit different. Like I said, I thought I would take the opportunity with this annoying wrist injury. I'm hoping to be back playing fairly soon. I've got a couple of videos saved up that will be getting released over the next few weeks, but until then, just keep an eye out for any new content. Thanks.